I'd like to call the Newman City Council regular meeting of February 9th, 1999 to order. This time, can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation. Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. In this we pray. Amen. Amen. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Altenmuller.
Present.
Reed.
Present.
Bradford.
Present.
Mayor Marquez.
Present. Item 5, this is items from the staff, communications. Cleve, is there anything tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Item 6, these are items from the public. These are non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Council. Is there anyone in the public who has a non-agenda item? Okay. These are items from the public. These are agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the Council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the Mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the Council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the Mayor and the Council grants a longer period of time. Okay, item 7. This is a consent calendar. Item A, approval of warrants. B, approval of minutes of January 26, 1999, February 2nd, 1999. Item C, resolution declaring surplus property. Item D, recommending the Council direct staff to formally approach the school district with partnership of hiring a school resource officer. And E, an informational report on the State of California Office of Criminal Justice Planning granting additional funding for local law enforcement block grant. Are there any of those items that wish to be pulled?
Mayor, just a note, you may not have noticed, but we failed to get on item B, the February 2nd meeting minutes in your packet. Therefore, that needs to be pulled off there, and we'll bring that back to you at your next meeting.
Okay.
So.
Are there any items that wish to be pulled other than the pulling February 2nd, 1999 minutes?
Consent item A, approval of warrants. I would ask that it be noted that it's exclusive of warrant number 016351, which is going to be considered at a later time in this meeting.
Okay. All right, so we will pull item 016351 from the warrants. Other than that, can we have... Okay, can we have some direction?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Bradford.
Yes.
Mayor Marquez.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Item 8, this is public hearings. At this time, there are no public hearings, so we'll move to item 9. This is regular business. Item A, presentation by Kelly Bearden of Skedco on the Y2K workshop for small business owners.
Council members, you have just a brief report here, and then we'll just turn it over to Kelly to make his presentation. And I'm sure that he'll add in there that we are looking at doing a Y2K workshop for small business owners in the area during probably the month of March. But I'll let Kelly address that further. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Marquez and City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and it's kind of fun because we get to talk about a topic I think we're all hearing way too much of, and an acronym that I think we're really getting sick of, and that's Y2K. But it is an important need right now for awareness with mainly the small business community, which is a group that really is kind of choosing to ignore the problem at this time. Many are kind of overwhelmed and not prepared for it from a budget perspective. So what we're doing is we're trying to get out and we're trying to encourage awareness on this particular issue with small businesses. And we're joining forces with the city and others to offer a small business workshop on March the 25th here in Newman. Very nominal fee, probably about $10 to cover some of the costs. And what we'll do is we'll go through a lot of the steps necessary for what we feel will be to make small businesses at least aware and to become compliant with the Y2K issue. You will note that we have changed our name, at least for our workshops, to the year 2000 and small business to try to get away from this acronym that we're being overwhelmed with. If I could just indulge you for a few minutes, I'll give just a little brief history of Y2K. I'm sure we're getting more familiar with it every day, and talk about some of the issues that I think are going to be affecting small businesses. The history of the problem dates back into the 1950s as far as some of the programming that goes with mainframe computers. I think we are hearing about stories like the Internal Revenue Service that has 14 billion lines of code in order to correct, and other issues. One thing about it is it's a much bigger problem than that. For small business people, it's going to be more or less a personal computer, operating system, and software issue, and not so much the larger computer issues. And then the next problem is going to be those with embedded chips, which are your basic microprocessing chips that you find in your Casio watches and so forth. There are numerous statistics on this, but there are estimated that there are over 80 billion of these chips in existence, and between 5 and 10 billion of these could be time sensitive. That is where I think there could be a real problem for small businesses. It is one that's going to take a lot of research in to see which ones are going to be problem chips and which ones are going to be either non-compliant or non-problem chips. But the embedded chips can be anywhere. They can be in any basic piece of operating machinery equipment, and a lot of these will not even be discovered probably until after the first of the year. The embedded chips, I think, are going to be a problem with the smaller manufacturers, particularly those that really don't think that they have a problem. And we've seen a lot of surveys done recently, one by Wells Fargo Bank and another one by the National Federation of Independent Business. And with these surveys, they predict that only 40% of small businesses that are aware of the problem are going to do anything. With 22.5 million small businesses in the United States, that leaves a lot of small businesses that are not either going to address the issue or are going to just wait and see what happens. It's important to see what others are doing to try to address this problem. We have government that is addressing the problem. Big business is starting to address the problem, and so are other countries. One of the things that I like to say is that I think for small business in the Y2K issue, I think that there is a great opportunity. I think that what we're going to see is that small businesses that are prepared and that are moving forward on this are going to gain. The ones that are not prepared and those that are located in foreign countries are going to suffer. And that is really the message that we're trying to carry forward in this workshop. By carrying forward, I think, the opportunity theme, I think if we can get small businesses prepared and moving forward with a plan, that they have the opportunity, once the first of the year comes along, to actually make inroads in their market share, for example. Kind of the scenario and what we go through as far as the awareness stage is, first is we're trying to become kind of a spokesperson to make small businesses aware that the problem exists. For most small businesses, or many small businesses, they won't be impacted at all. But there are others that are going to be significantly impacted. For example, a retail store could run into problems with a cash register. Now, that isn't going to be an overwhelming obstacle for them to get over, but there are things that they can do to try to help alleviate that process. So basically, we're trying to take them through about a 6-step test in order to try to get them compliant and prepared. After the awareness stage of actually realizing that this is the single largest challenge to small businesses that we've faced in many years, then we would guide them into an assessment stage. And the assessment stage is more or less just going through and analyzing and trying to determine what is going to be your exposure to this problem. Going through the assessment stage, then we develop an inventory. and try to take them into inventorying their assets where they might have a problem, and trying to actually go through a detailed assessment and a detailed inventory to try to find out where their exposure to the problem could be. And then we try to get them to develop a plan. With most small businesses, we'd like them to have a business plan right now. However, most of them don't. So what we like to see is we like to see them develop a plan to at least address the issues with the Y2K. After developing a plan, then they get into an implementation stage. And after implementing the plan, they get into testing. It's ironic that the testing is about 50 to 70% of the entire process of what we've seen so far. And then after testing, get into critical steps that I think, and that's contingency planning. Now, if they do the business plan correctly and they go through all these 6 or 7 steps, and they start looking then for other weaknesses that might be with some of their competition. Ideally, we've run into statistics such as there are 400,000 manufacturing plants in Taiwan that are very basic, very small, about the size of this room or less, and very few of these are going to be Y2K ready. And where we're seeing an opportunity, I believe anyway, is that a lot of small businesses actually aren't going to be prepared to go after them as potential customers or go after who their customers are. Because big business is concerned. They're real concerned that small business is not going to be ready. And they depend on small business not only as customers, but they depend on them as suppliers as well. And if we start running into problems with the supply chain, that is where a lot of the problems could occur as well. So we have government, we have big business out there who is continuing to try to get the word out to small businesses to try to take the steps to be prepared. And one of the biggest ways that they can be prepared is to do the contingency planning. It's interesting to note, I worked with one guy on this problem already, and we went through the process of looking at some of his equipment. And a lot of them aren't clear, easy steps. You look at this piece of equipment here, and it was actually manufactured in the 1960s or the early 70s. The origin, if it has a microprocessing chip in there, an embedded system, we're not real sure. We're not sure if it was going to actually work or not. But then what we did was kind of come up with a flow chart and to try to look at ways of which we can deal with it if it does work or if it does not work. And basically we found that replacing the piece of equipment was going to be $4,200. So this individual, for his contingency planning, basically set out a flow chart of ways that he can deal with it. Okay, if it works, great, end of step. If it doesn't work, then what are our options? Our options are to try to repair that or to buy a new piece of machinery. Now, the one concern we have is that when, after the first of the year, that, there are going to be a lot of these computer people and a lot of equipment people that are going to be busy with problems that they aren't aware of before the year changes. So by having at least a list of potential suppliers and finding out if it's in stock and doing the homework and finding out what is available and doing the contingency planning for that piece of equipment and others, he feels that he'll be ready because he does not feel compelled to make a $4,200 investment in a piece of machinery right now that he doesn't know if or is not going to work. Some of his other contingency plannings that he had was to increase his inventory in December and to try to become more ready that way. At least if he was faced with a 5 or 7 day shutdown, that he would be okay. And all these we feel are necessary because we've seen statistics from the Federal Reserve Bank, for example, who have come out and said that between 1% and 7% of small businesses may fail solely because of this problem. And that's kind of a startling statistic when you have a Federal Reserve Bank that comes out. And typically the small businesses that we work with are typically generally undercapitalized, and if they run into a problem where they have troubles collecting their money or troubles even from their suppliers or their customers, that they are kept from receiving cash on a regular basis for 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, then they could really suffer some severe consequences. So that's kind of the gravity of the program that we go through, and we go through basically in trying to become more or less a resource for small businesses. We do that with the Small Business Development Center, and whereas we don't get into a lot of our normal function, which is one-on-one business counseling, we don't get into a lot of that with these, and we are concerned a little bit about liability and helping them with this and that. If any of you have got on the Y2K web pages, especially the ones for lawyers, they're predicting that this could be their payday. Their ship could be coming in. So, trying to help the small businesses as much as possible and still kind of cover ourselves is kind of a tricky situation.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Kelly, I'm wondering, March 25th time and place, has that been determined yet?
We haven't determined the location, but that'll be the next thing I'm sure we work on. I think that's a Friday, and I believe it is going to be from 12 to 2 p.m. and serve lunch, and I believe it's going to be either $10 or $15. There'll be a the 2-hour workshop, and then there'll be handouts on the presentation and plenty of materials, including things that are helpful, like list or sample letters of which you can send to your suppliers. If you have a key supplier, you're going to want to know if they're going to be able to supply you the goods afterwards. And a lot of the bigger businesses are doing that now. We have banks that actually have checklists, 4- and 5-page checklists before they are actually loaning money to small business clients right now to make sure that they are appraised. So there's a lot of materials that are out there right now, and there's a lot of other people that are in the economy that are doing things, and we try to provide those materials in addition to the workshop.
And for additional information, the folks that might be watching this program tomorrow night might contact City Hall or Skedco?
Yeah, we'll have, by sometime next week, what we'll do is we will actually mail the brochure to each of the council members and the mayor, and we'll get some to Cleve at City Hall. So there'll be some here. And I'm sure we'll have something in the West Side Index relatively soon as well. So there should be some pretty good notoriety about the program. And hopefully we can get a lot of small businesses in attendance and try to see what we can do to get Newman small businesses ready.
Okay. How many of these workshops are you planning on having on this side of the county? Are you going to have a couple in Patterson as well?
I have our tentative schedule here, and it says tentative times and dates, and trust me, this thing changes about every hour, it seems like.
And the reason I asked, just in case some of the business owners here aren't able to make this specific date, are these other dates, will they be open to?
As far as Patterson goes, we're planning on offering the same workshop there on April the 30th.
Okay.
And let's see, we're coming back to Newman. We're scheduled to come back in June and do a small business financing on another matter. And if we have demand for the Y2K workshops as the year goes on, we'll gladly schedule in additional workshops to fill that demand.
And something we might want to also consider as well as the date gets closer, we might want to include that on the water bill for the business owners. That way that's another simple reminder for them.
Another thing that came to my mind, and as I listened to your presentation, it may not be feasible, but I'm thinking of folks that work out of their home, that telecommute or that have an internet-type business. Would this workshop be of any benefit to those people?
I think it would. We don't get real heavy into the PC aspect. We refer to a lot of websites. Some of the ones that we're doing in other locations, we're bringing in actually a consultant. But I think there's a lot of information that is on the internet, and if they already have access to it, where they can determine. It's ironic that personal computers that were manufactured as late as 1997, many of those are not Y2K compliant. And a lot of the operating software, such as Windows 95, has yet to be fully certified as being 100% compliant, and a lot of other software that's rather common as well. Now, I'm sure a lot of them only might have small defects or bugs, and I think that isn't the real biggest worry that we have, but I think that there are a lot of resources out there as far as fixing that, and that would be the needs that I think they might have as far as maybe some things to do with their actual home.
Thank you.
Sure.
But there would be nothing to exclude them from attending this seminar if they want to.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Absolutely not.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Kelly,
Thank
for
you.
coming out. Okay, that was item A. We now go to item B. This is an informational report on the city's animal control. Chief?
Good evening, City Council and Mayor Marquez. I prepared for you a report, and I'll read just the first paragraph and answer any kind of questions you may have, and that's for the benefit of the audience. And I also went through licensing, and we'll talk about that for a minute. And one of our council people was Mrs. Altemeyer was kind enough to give me some other suggestions that I will be working on diligently. So with that, let me go ahead and start. Just kind of give people just a basic knowledge of what the animal control procedures are in Newman. Is if a complaint comes in on a loose dog, an officer is assigned to determine if it is a danger to the public or if it can be confined. If the Gustine Animal Control Officer is on duty, she's assigned to the call and attempts to catch the animal. If the police officer determines the dog to be a danger or that it can be confined, and the Gustine Animal Control Officer is not on, he can page her and see if she can respond. If not, then we can contact the Stanislaus County Animal Control and have them respond out. The reason we do that is basically she has a better response time, number one, and number two, she's a little bit cheaper. And because we're looking at probably about 45 minutes to an hour, that's why we want the dog confined if at all possible, because it's no use for them to come out and us to bear the expense if there's nothing there for them to catch when they get out here. If the dog is not determined to be a danger or confinable, the peace officer can note the date, time, and location and place this information in the Gustine Control Officer's box for when she comes back onto duty, and the Gustine Animal Control Officer will adjust her hours to handle this complaint if necessary. It's been my finding that basically if we find these dogs out and loose, they're usually out in their own neighborhoods, and if it's a habitual problem, we're going to catch that dog, especially with her varying her hours to be able to make herself available during that time when that dog's out. So basically we get the Gustine officer for about 9 hours a week, 36 hours a month. She not only handles patrol for about 6 hours of that a week, but she's also has to keep the ones that she does catch, the pound clean, fed, watered. She takes any kind of reports come in. It's not just dogs that we're talking about. We put cat traps out every week to try and keep that problem down in our business area. She maintains a control log. Let's see, she feeds water, takes animal bite reports. She's taken rooster reports. We've caught a few possums, a hawk. So we get a variety of things. And our pen that we have right now only holds 3. So we can only house about 3 animals at a time. And then the cats we just leave in the cage, and we have the Stanislaus County Animal Control come out directly for the most part for most of those animals. So we don't try to house the animals for very long. 9 hours doesn't go very far for what we're really trying to accomplish. So we try and maximize that as much as possible. Just kind of give you an idea of some of the numbers that we're talking about. In the last 7 months, you might not believe this, but we've actually impounded about 129 animals. So that's really kind of considerable. And also, just kind of give you an idea on a calendar year basis, like for the month of January, we impounded 22 animals, so that's quite a bit. 18 of those were dogs, and 4 of those were cats. In all of '98, we picked up 296 animals, and 140 were dogs, 156 cats, and a rooster, a rabbit, and a hawk. And in '97, we had 174. 148 of those were dogs, 25 were cats, and we got 1 possum that year. So for a grand total since 10 months of just about 2 years of the program, we've got almost 500 animals, 494 animals. That is a lot of animals to be leaving the city here. So I think our program does work. I'm not saying it's something that's it's 100%. And we are working to try and modify it and stretch that dollar as much as possible. We have catch poles that we're going to be purchasing this year to put in the officers' cars so they can be a little bit more thorough. They currently have animal control gloves. We were looking at one time in '97 at licensing, and we Margaret, Susan, and I, we did a cost breakdown on what that would cost us to do this kind of program, and we found it wasn't cost effective for us to do licensing. Number one, it would actually void our contract with Stanislaus County. We get some advantages with contracting with Stanislaus County. We don't have to pay shelter fees. We don't have to pay a disposal fee for the animals after they are euthanized, and we don't have to utilize our city attorney, although we like him dearly. He is costly, and we try and utilize his service as least as possible and try and use the Stanislaus County courts, and we can do that as long as we have a contract for them. We're not 100% because I know he's handling about 3 cases for us now in animal control, so even our officers don't always cite under the proper sections, but we're kind of stuck with that. But for the most part, we try and use the Stanislaus County codes for that very reason, so we can use the courts. And with that, I'll just kind of open up for any kind of questions you may have regarding animal control.
Are there any questions for the chief?
I have a couple questions,
Sure.
Mike. I was wondering, you talked about the control officer varying her hours during the week.
Right.
Would there be a time of the day that she'd vary them? What I'm concerned about, I know a lot of animals are released at night, and they're wandering our streets, and I don't know if she's out there, say, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, because I think a lot of times that's when.
Okay, I can tell you I haven't had her out as late as 11 o'clock.
But I think some dogs and animals are released at that time, and apparently they make their rounds and then they go back home.
Okay.
So I don't know if it'd be worthwhile, but
We could try it and see if that, a couple of times and see if how that works. We find that mostly when the dogs are released is either they're out during the day or people release them upon their return home, so maybe 6 or 7 o'clock. So we have had her work a few evenings.
okay. And then my other question was, you had a total of 129 animals for that period from January to July. Are any of those repeat offenders where animals have been picked up and then you see?
We've
the
had a
same-
few, but I can't.
For the most part, they're not.
The most part, no, they're not.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
If they're a repeated one, we could probably find out who the owner is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Mike, the other Sunday evening, I was out walking. I saw the animal control and a police cruiser following a dog down T Street. They turned down Merced Street. Did they ever catch that dog, you know?
Yes, they did.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, that was actually, I think that was Stanislaus County that had come out for that one.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know which one it was. I saw
Right.
it in the back. Okay, thank you. I'd like to also, while I'm talking, thank the chief and the staff for the complete report on this. It kind of spells everything out and the expenses of it. It seems that we're doing a pretty good job for the money we're putting out. We're getting a lot of return for it. Thank you.
Like I said, it's not perfect, but I think it's a good program. It can be improved on, and we endeavor to do that each year.
I was wondering if I might take 3 or 4 minutes to just read this. I put together just some things that regarding animal control in Newman and just some ideas for it. Probably take me about 3 minutes. It's like,
If you can hang on one second, were there any other questions though, just for Mike before we? Sheila, any other? Because I actually did have a couple quick questions just on Mike's report here. Chief, on the contract with the county, where you say that if we do the licensing local and all that we void the contract, is there something written in there as far as the amount of hours? Is there a minimum amount of hours that we need to contract with them? Or can we just continue to have them license? Because
They're looking at this as their total revenue is what they're looking at.
okay, because one of the things that I looked at was this $10 per hour that we pay the what comes out to $10 per hour what we pay the animal control for Gustine, and I look at this $34.80 per hour.
Actually, it's a little bit more than that.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
So-
actually 62 cents a minute. And
Yeah,
we
so we're-
contract for 480
Okay, so we're looking at
minutes.
like $40 an hour then almost.
Right.
And and I look at what we contract out with the county, 8 hours per month, which it says here on your report during the day on Fridays and Saturdays. Well, that's which day, that can only possibly be one weekend out of the month. Is that right? If
Well, they don't spend all their time. That's one of the things I want to make clear too, is they spend between 1 and a maximum of 4 hours when they do come out.
Right, but 8 hours is pretty slim though. And all I'm saying is that if the cost is 4 times more with the county, and if we could continue, because I've read through this entire thing and I understand where we save the money on the shelter fees and I understand all that, but if they're looking at it purely from just the revenue, one of the things that I thought that we could possibly do, we're missing a lot of the people that, are out of town, until the late hours, and then they're just mostly around during the weekends. And I imagine a lot of those people, have a difficulty getting their animals licensed. And so I thought that if perhaps we had a few more workshops, then the county would then receive some more revenue because we would have more licensed animals. But from just the cost differential, we could go an additional 24 hours a month on animal control. I mean, from 8 hours with what we're contracting with the county, we could get an additional, if the cost is 4 times, we get 32, 24 more hours, and we could contract that locally. We can maybe address a few more of the evening hours, but I just wonder what the contract says as far as if there is a minimum amount of hours that we have to contract to them.
That is the
Licensing
minimum.
aside. Oh,
That is 8 hours is the minimum. We could contract for more.
okay, but
But
we
I went down to the bare bones
Okay.
minimum that I had to contract with.
we have to.
We have to do the 8 hours. That's how the contract reads. It says 480 minutes, which it comes out to the 8 hours.
Because they're
I would
looking.
like to contract more with Gustine.
Right,
My
because-
problem is basically the Gustine officer has another job,
Okay.
and so I have to. We're kind of working around that somewhat too. So
But
even
what
though-
I'm-
even
but-
when I vary the hours, they
But
can't
what I'm
vary that
saying,
much
though-
because she's.
Right. What I'm
Also
saying though is that if we could make this thing a wash as far as the additional licensing fees that are collected, if we could, if at the end of the day the county still has as much revenue because of more licensing fees or because we're contracting 8 hours, you think would that make it? Could we look at it from that perspective? All the county cares about is just making sure that they get X amount of dollars to offset some of their costs, right?
Well, I'm sure that they'd like to make a profit too.
Right, but
I'm not sure. That's something I could talk over with
Yeah,
Paul Turner, the
I just like
director.
to see us look at that because it just seems like such a shame that, that we're losing out on 24 additional hours a month
Mhm.
on animal control, which is, an additional 6 hours a week. And, and I understand that the county has their costs in here with the shelter fees and everything else. And that's why I'm suggesting that perhaps we do some workshops on the weekends so we get those people that aren't currently, that don't currently have their animals licensed. At least there's a Saturday or a Sunday available for them to actually have the time to go do it. And then the county would have more revenue because they would collect more licensing fees.
Well, that's something I could bring up,
Right.
Mr. Turner.
So if we could bring that back, that way we could, they could continue to get their fees. We would have more residents in town with licensed animals, and yet, we could contract that at a more reasonable per hour cost and get more hours for, because one of the things in addition to the dogs, and I'll say that it's a whole lot better than it was several years ago. It was a mess before, but in the business area where you've got, obviously we don't have enough traps, I don't think, for the cats. These cats are, they're sick. They continue to breed more and more, and it's a mess in the alleys of the business area. And so if you could get back to us on that and find out what we can do with regards to how much the total amount is that they get, and if we could meet that with more clinics. So that's all I have. Go ahead.
Okay.
And even more importantly, I think, is getting the dogs vaccinated against rabies. And I've sort of focused on dogs because you generally don't see, 100-pound cats going out attacking people. So I've kind of focused on the dog issue there. But I've kind of compiled some ideas, and I've left some out, and I did this really quickly, and I didn't spell check it, so you have copies of it. But I wanted to read this because it kind of gives a little focus to where I'm thinking that I'm hoping that the city council and the residents of Newman will want to go as far as animal control issues. I just have it as addressing negligent dog owners in the city of Newman. There's a lot of dogs roaming around out there. I mean, it may be better than it has been in the past, But this past weekend, when I had to drive to the store and I came back, I saw a pack of 6 dogs. 3 of them were large dogs. The other 3 were medium-sized dogs roaming down Balsam by the car wash, the Splash and Dash. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, and I've seen these dogs out there individually by themselves, and yet now they were traveling as a pack, and that's definitely not good. And this was like at twilight. There was kids out riding their bikes and stuff, and I have a great concern that someone else is going to get injured and attacked by a dog. So I'll read this. It'll just take a few minutes. Our current city and county animal control laws have unfortunately encouraged negligent dog ownership by penalizing non-compliant dog owners with a mere slap on the hand and a daily fine. What incentive does a non-compliant dog owner have to vaccinate and license his dog when the consequences are so minimal? The City of Newman and the Stanislaus County Animal Control both require that all dogs be licensed. The California State Health Code requires rabies vaccinations for all dogs. Dogs without a rabies vaccination certificate cannot be licensed. Dog owners face minimal penalties when they are found in noncompliance with the law. First comes the fix-it ticket. After 14 days, if this fix-it ticket has not been taken care of, the offender can expect a citation and most likely a day in court if the citation has not been taken care of in a reasonable amount of time. When the day in court comes, if it comes, the penalty is almost always another extension of time in which the still non-compliant dog owner can take the necessary steps to vaccinate and license their dog. Yet another postponement where the unvaccinated dog is allowed to be a potential danger to the community. On occasion, a small fine, usually under $100, may be ordered. By breaking the rabies vaccination and dog licensing laws, these dog owners have waived their rights, in my opinion, to further dog ownership within city limits. If they are allowed to continue in their negligence, they should be penalized as strongly as possible. Where there are laws that prevent us from rendering far more harsh penalties, let's change them. We seem to have more than adequate policing of children who ride their bikes and rollerblades on the sidewalks of downtown Newman. Yet we are not equipped to deal with the negligent and non-compliant dog owners who allow their unvaccinated dogs to roam freely, taking with them the constant threat of attack which could severely maul or kill a child, an adult, or in my own family's case, a beloved leashed family pet, and nearly kill a 225-pound man, my husband. And there is also the threat of transmitting rabies. In my own family's case, the unlicensed dog that mauled my husband was not vaccinated against rabies, a $6 shot. And when it began to exhibit signs that it had been exposed to the rabies virus during the 10-day quarantine period, my husband was required to begin getting his own rabies vaccinations. It was a nightmare that I don't want anyone else to go through. Having been a victim of someone's negligent dog ownership has brought me to this awareness. It seems to me that it is extremely important to keep unlicensed dogs, which are possibly rabid and or vicious, off our streets starting now. It is time that we called attention to this problem once again and followed through with it by creating tougher laws with stiffer fines. It's not a matter of Big Brother trying to keep us under his thumb by keeping tabs on our pet ownership and collecting fines to be used for anything other than animal control needs. It's a matter of responsibility. Owning a pet, another living creature, is a privilege that should be only enjoyed by those who are humane and conscientious about the responsibility in which they themselves have chosen to take on. It's not mandatory that anyone own a dog, just mandatory that everyone who owns a dog comply with the minimal legal requirements. As for our individual rights to do what we want on our own property in our own area, here are a few things to think about. What about the rights of Newman residents who walk down their streets with or without their own leash dogs, without fear of being attacked by an unconfined, unvaccinated, and or vicious dog? What about the rights of compliant dog owners who feel that they are the ones footing the bill for all the non-compliant, law-breaking dog owners? Those of us who follow the rules are slapped in the face every time a dog owner is allowed to get away with never vaccinating, licensing, or confining their animal. In the summer of 1998, the Stanislaus County Animal Control came to Newman and successfully licensed and vaccinated about 200 dogs. On their next visit, they plan to give citations to those dog owners who have not complied with the laws. Let's take it a step further and make the penalties stiffer for noncompliance. According to the informal report included in our packets this evening, there were 437 animals euthanized in our area in the past 2 years. This is unacceptable. There is no excuse for this high number of casualties when measures to prevent this are in place, however, not being enforced to the fullest extent possible. Our city and our county need to take the next step and require that all dogs and cats be spayed or neutered, with the exception of licensed, reputable breeders who have a history of humane and responsible treatment of their animals. This one step alone will cause the number of stray animals to drop considerably. If not for the humanity, consider the cost of controlling all these animals whose owners have let them down and essentially signed their death warrant. When unneutered dogs are allowed to wander the streets, the outcome is usually many litters of pups being born. The fate of these dogs is either they are sold or given away to a loving owner who complies with the animal control laws, or they are taken to the animal shelter and either adopted by a compliant or a negligent owner, or killed by lethal injection because they are too many animals to take care of, or they are sold or given away to a negligent owner who doesn't comply, and the cycle of negligence begins all over again. To further aid the city and county in the eradication of the practice of euthanizing dogs, I am setting up a joint venture with a local veterinarian to do low-cost and no-cost dog neutering to those Newman residents who have financial difficulties. This fund will also help with rabies vaccinations. It is my hope that others will come forward to donate toward this program. I encourage anyone who would like information to contact me at City Hall, or you can reach me at my home phone number at 862-4951. My voicemail will be set up hopefully by the end of this week at City Hall. I will have more information about the number of dogs licensed in our city at the next City Council meeting, and I will hope to have an estimate of the number of unlicensed dogs as well. I have spoken with a couple of people at the Stanislaus County Animal Shelter and will be getting more information and hopefully permission to begin filming a documentary about the cycle of negligent dog ownership and how shelters deal with the overflow. This video will be available to veterinarians, dog rescues, and individuals for a nominal fee to recoup costs, as well as an extra $3 or so for Pork Chop's Love a Dog Fund, the nonprofit spay and neuter fund that I'm setting up. I strongly urge our City Council and city residents to take an active role in this effort. We need stronger laws, stiffer fines, and more incentives to get the negligent dog owners in compliance. I look forward to hearing ideas from the City Council members as well as the residents of Newman. Let's please put a stop to this cycle of negligent owners and inhumane treatment of animals. Thank you.
Thank you. As Councilmember Altemuller said, you can contact her. She will have her voicemail set up at the City Hall if you have any further questions for her on this matter. Thank you, Chief, on this, and we'll hear back from you as far as some of the issues that we had raised. Okay. Item C, this is to review a proposal of a joint project with the Newman Crows Landing School District to develop a teen center at the city's youth center. Cleve?
Yes, Mayor and Council Member, this is an item that actually I've been working on and discussing with the school district as well as others over the past several months since I've been here in Newman. And what the purpose of this discussion tonight is simply to bring this item to the council's attention and hopefully gain your approval that you see this as an item you'd like us to continue with. I have had many discussions with the school district, especially with Mary Pickford, who is here with us tonight on this issue. There's a couple of things that we've been working on. One of them was there's recently been funding come available for an after-school program. Unfortunately, that's one that we had to, as far as the youth center, kind of turn and look at other avenues because it requires that those monies be used on school sites only. So it precluded us from using that at our youth center. But we are going to continue with that program. That's a grant program, and we'll continue to work with the school and see what ways the collaboration might be available to us to work with the school district and the school district and the city together to make that program work. And that's a very good program. There's some money available out there for some good things. Mary is in charge of the Healthy Start program, which is becoming a very successful program here in Newman that she's got going, and there's a lot of exciting things coming down with that. There may be some, there are some ways that we will work collaboratively with that also. The issue that I brought before you tonight concerns specifically the youth center and the idea of making that a teen center. And I've outlined in here some of the things that we've that we would like to do. About the fourth paragraph down, I've written in here some of the things that we could possibly provide would be tutoring, homework assistance, computer access, individual and group activities. Those individual and group activities have a full range of things that could range from, pool, computer games, video games, etc., as well as organized activities that might take place. There's all sorts of things that I've seen in these centers, in Boys and Girls Clubs, etc., as far as, chess tournaments, checker tournaments, all kinds of things. There's just a myriad of things that could be available in this type of center. As I've outlined in here, the Rotary Club, I had talked to them about this possibility. They did apply for a grant for some money. They have been awarded $15,000, which is available to us. In addition, I have put in here and proposed that we use some of the $35,000 of money that's available in our CDBG rehab grant, the reuse money that is returned to us and is available for a possibility of money that we could use. There is more than the 30. That money would be used for is replacement of the heating and air conditioning system. The system that is in there, there is one unit in there that is not being used. It's the original unit that was in there. It doesn't work at all. There's since been an additional small heater unit that has been placed in there. They use that for heating only. As I understand it, there is no air conditioning in the building. It's currently not used very much in the summertime, so that hasn't been a significant problem. But for this program, I see that it would be used. Other issues that are in need are the replacement of the windows. One of the things that I see as an important factor is getting buy-in from the youth of the community so that we don't have the problem that we've had in the past as far as vandalism and graffiti on the building that caused us in the past to board some of those windows up and take them out. I think there's ways through active enforcement of graffiti and vandalism program, immediately replacing broken windows, removing graffiti, and etc., that you can eventually curb those problems and prevent them. So those are some of the things that I would propose. Remodeling of the restrooms is one of probably the most costly item that we would be looking at in this project. They are not even close to meeting the ADA standards that we would need to meet to open this as a public facility if we were to remodel it. So that's one of the big ones that we would need to do. Other items include possible some ceiling repair, painting, landscaping, renovation of the closets and kitchens. Some of those items would not necessarily need to be done immediately, but could be done over time after we got the program underway. To be honest with you, this money to do the renovation and bring the building up to standards where it can be used is more of a lesser item that we need to look at. The real issue is coming up with funds to operate the facility. Though that's the issue that is before us that would be more difficult. We are continuing to look at other avenues of possible grant funding. I had a meeting with the superintendent today, and there are still possibilities of working with the school district on other funds that they may have available, either local school district funds or possibly other grant funds that come through the education system that might be available. Also, programs can be set up to have volunteer help and et cetera to hopefully make this program something that will work. As I mentioned, my main purpose was to bring this before you tonight as a discussion item. If there's anything that the council would recommend as far as moving forward with it, not moving forward with it, additional items that you would like me to pursue. We will continue to look at other grant monies that might be available. There are sometimes funds available through the criminal justice system for at-youth risk. We're reviewing that right now, and we'll see what funds might be available there. Also through the State Parks and Recreation, there may be funds in that area for at-youth risk. So we're looking at every avenue that we can to come up with funds. Currently, we're looking at, and I discussed this with the school district today, possibly coming back in this coming year's budget with a way to possibly fund this program to make it work. So if there's any questions that council has, comments on this, I would welcome these at this time. I would, before I turn to those questions, though, like to give Mary Pickford an opportunity, if she'd like to say a few words about our cooperation and how we've been able to work together with the city and the school district. Please.
Mayor Marquez, certainly with the tremendous response from the city of and members of our Newman Crows Landing School District, a phenomenal response with our questionnaire. The collaboration and the partnership has been a very positive activity, and I think I can't imagine the state of California turning down the Newman Crows Landing Healthy Start project when they see the amount of cooperation and community work. We had nearly 500 responses, over 400 and some student represented responses on the questionnaire, and great coverage with our local press, and it's really been front and center, and so many different organizations support. So again, serving the youth and the idea on that questionnaire, one of the overriding themes was something for kids to do after school and during intersession and after school summertime activities. Getting students involved, kids involved in making their own facilities, of course, is one of the new themes, and we know when kids are involved, they're going to protect it. Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Mary?
I do, actually. On that survey, and I remember sending that in.
Thank you very much.
I would like to know if anybody responded or wrote in anything about like evenings, like what about Fridays and Saturday nights? When, kids, teenagers, they don't want to be stuck at home doing nothing. They're going to either wander the streets, which is always fun. I remember doing that when I was a teenager, or have something fun to do, which is the other option. I was wondering, did anyone write in, like, let's have something at nighttime for these guys?
Yeah, there was a great deal of very positive response about theater, and not just movies, but also actually performing activities and arts and crafts. And so we're only limited by our imagination and a few resources. We have some rich resources in our community in terms of skills and talents, and we just need to look at how we can work together collaboratively. And I think that's really been the theme this year, is that we see so many people volunteering. We have people already volunteering ceramic molds and willing to participate and teach some activities. Doesn't necessarily have to be on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Okay, does the council have any questions for Cleve on this?
I do. What would the time frame be for like the upgrade on the building? Like, what are we looking at from?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that this is a doable program. I'm not saying that we wouldn't do that. However, the money that we are looking at getting from Rotary is prefaced on the fact that we're going to do this teen center program. So we need to use it. We need to make sure that we can come up with the funds for the operation and make this program work before I move forward with it. We discussed that a little bit. Rotary was under a tight time frame to submit their grant proposal, and so they went ahead and submitted, and if this didn't work, they'd say we could come back and request that it get moved to a different project. But so that's where that's at. The first thing we need to do is put everything together and make sure feasibly that we can make this work. I haven't really thought about time frame to do all of these improvements. That's something that needs to be done, but there's going to be some design and structural work that will need to be done around the restroom issue, because they've got block walls that enter through the doorways into the restrooms and things. Some of those are going to have to be widened. It's not going to be a real simple project, as well as making the restrooms larger, which may involve moving the walls out into the closet on one side and the kitchen on the other side to make things like that work. So it's not going to be a simple project, but it's definitely a doable project.
Are we talking about like a year from now or something, or just like a rough time?
I would guess that once we start the project, we're going to be looking at somewhere between 6 months to a year to get the design work done and then go out to bid on the project and get the project constructed. That would be just a rough guess.
Do we know the square footage on that building offhand? Does anyone have an idea?
I don't have that.
Okay.
Just trying to think. I would guess is that about 300 feet long, the length of it, and 100 feet, so maybe 3,000 square feet, something like that, Mike, you think? About 3,000 square feet, I would guess, something close to that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Just a couple of comments. I think it's wonderful what Rotary has done in getting that grant and the Healthy Start program. It's phenomenal for our community, and thank you, Mary, for all your hard work on that. It's great that we've got the $50,000 in seed money. You know, this is a start. This is the time to move on this project, but we're going to have to keep that momentum going. And I'm thinking of other communities that have been successful with a Boys and Girls Club or a youth club of some kind, and it's taken the dedication of individuals in the community that stay focused. Right here in our community, we've got the West Side Theater group that, I mean, look what they've done. And it takes the dedication of a group of citizens that will make it happen and continue to make it happen. I'm thinking, you know, Boys and Girls Club Manteca, they have a regular bingo night that they raise a lot of funds for, and every year they have, a couple of times a year they have an auction. All the local folks donate things. They have a silent auction and a bidding auction. And I mean, they bring in folks from Channel 13, Channel 10, and they all come down, and it's televised, and it's just a great fundraising event. And I can't see why something like that can happen in Newman if we can get our citizens behind it. And this is the time to do it. So I hope anybody that might be listening out there that's interested will let us know that you would like to volunteer and make this thing happen.
Yes, I'd like to elaborate on this. It's been one of my pet projects, is to find things for the kids to do. There's a good program for team sports and activities, but very few things for individual sports and activities. And I always thought this building, youth center, would work real well up there if we could get it fixed up, and particularly the parents that are looking for something for their kids to let the parents get out, let them help. If we can get even when you go into construction, if there are things where the parents can help, for instance, the high school football stadium was built mostly by local people, and several other projects. And if they could get in with that, we could probably save a lot of money in that, get it done faster. And I think that it's really up to the parents if they really want their kids to have something to do to get out and work with our Recreation Commission and the city to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, the only comment I'd like to make is, in a town like Newman, we certainly need this sort of thing for our youth. We know they're out there, and so often we don't do anything for them. And this is a golden opportunity to give them something and show them that the city and the school system cares about them. And when we're out there trying to give them a place where they can go, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I just wish we had done it sooner. Thank you.
And I just I agree with everybody when they say this is a long overdue project. It's been a shame that youth center has been sitting there in the condition that it's been for, as long as it has, but I'm very happy to see that we're moving forward on this. And I'm very happy to see that the school district and the city, this is for everybody in town to see that this is the things that the city and the school district can do when we work together, and I would hope that they take note of that. With that, you have our comments, and we will be seeing this shortly. Okay, item D, this is appointments to council committees. Cleve?
As you can read in the report here, and Councilmember Altamiller can add in if she wants to, but there's some committees that she unfortunately will not be able to be our representative to because of work commitments that she has, and therefore we need to recommend that we have others appointed to these committees at this time.
Yeah, and the problem is just that I can't guarantee that I will get back in time for these meetings, and I don't want to commit to them completely now, knowing that I won't be able to get back here by 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So I would just rather bow out gracefully before I start attending the meetings and then can't follow through attending them.
Thank you.
Okay. We have Tosca, we have the West Side Theater Foundation, the Wastewater Treatment Plant Task Force, and the Economic Development Action Committee, that is the Crow's Landing. Which one is that?
No, that's just that's a countywide one, isn't it?
Oh,
Judy?
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a
okay.
countywide task force.
Now, Tosca unfortunately, I didn't bring the dates on here again when they meet. When, Tosca? Okay.
I don't have the
Okay.
I don't have the date and
Well-
time on that. I apologize. I should have brought that.
Without actually having the dates, are there any council members that would wish to volunteer for any of these committees? Or, unfortunately, I should have brought the agenda from the last meeting when it actually had the dates. Or do we want to just hold off until we actually have the dates? Or is there anybody that'd like to volunteer for some of these?
The Theater Foundation meets on the first Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock.
Okay,
I wouldn't mind volunteering for that.
Good.
okay. Okay. Is it,
I'd be willing to volunteer for the E EDAC.
okay. Bob, Sheila.
I'm wondering, on the wastewater treatment plant task force, I'm currently serving. I know we've had 2 members in the past. Is it necessary that we have 2 council members?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think we had talked about that possibly that was originally done in case one couldn't make it. At least we would have one person
Okay.
have it.
Well, if the council
don't have
doesn't
to.
object, I don't see any reason why. What we could possibly do, if we would like, we could have an alternate to that committee if you would like.
I'll volunteer to be the
Okay.
alternate for the
Okay.
wastewater treatment.
And then we have Tosca and Tosca. Do I have volunteers for Tosca? Okay, then I will serve on that. Okay, so we have myself on Tosca, Bob, Councilmember Martina with the West Side Theater, Sheila with the Economic Development Action Committee, and Dave is the alternate on the wastewater treatment plant. Okay, can we have would you like formal action on that? No, okay, we don't need any. Okay, item E, this is approval of the warrant number 16351 to PG&E. Can we have some direction?
I make a motion, we approve the warrant.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 4-0 with 1 non-participating. Item number 10, these are items from the city manager.
Quickly, let me just run through some items that I've been working on. I talked about some things we've been meeting regularly with the school district, and that's been going very well. As you know, last week I attended the City Managers Conference in Monterey. One of the interesting sessions that I went to concerned financing and possible return of funds to local governments that were taken away back in 93, 94 in the ERAF process. I won't go into a lot on that, only that the information that we received was not encouraging. It wasn't a real positive session that I attended on that. There are, as we know, the state does have some funds available, and however, it doesn't look real positive that any of those are going to go to local government. Contrary to that, it appears that some of the talk that is coming from the state government is that the move is even more towards taking funds and what funds they give back to us have strings attached to the state. In other words, they control the funds rather than having funds that local government controls, which is another discouraging fact. It involves land use planning and many other items. So it was not a good feeling that came out of that session. The League of California Cities has already taken action to form a group known as Action for Better Cities, which will try to put together a program to do more active lobbying on the part of cities at the state. One of the points that was brought up is that because of restrictions in lobbying and putting out funds by cities for lobbying, the cities don't have a good lobbying effort or a good effort to put forth their issues before the state legislature. And this is an effort by the League of California Cities to try and do that, and I think it's a positive one. If they can make it work and put it together with funding, et cetera, that's necessary, it'll be a good one. But that was just one of the sessions. There were some very good sessions that came out of that. You recall a couple of meetings ago we discussed the park issue with the annexation that is proposed out next to Von Renner School. I had originally mentioned that we would try to bring that back at this meeting. I've had some very good discussions with the superintendent of schools of the school district, as well as the developer, and also with our Parks and Recreation commissioners. I've discussed a little bit with our mayor, and I think that we're very close to reaching a good solution that everybody can live with on that. So that will be brought back to you at your next meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't have a time to put all of that together with all those people I met with to have it ready for tonight's meeting. Issue was brought up recently with the superintendent of the school district about scheduling a joint meeting with the council in the near future. As I think everyone knows, there's some issues that they have coming up as far as funding school facilities in the near future that need to be addressed, and they would like to address those and discuss ways that the city council, but the city as a whole, can work together to make sure that things work out for them in that way. And I think that's a very positive thing that we need to do. The next thing that I'd like to propose and maybe get a couple of comments on is on March 2nd, I would like to schedule a special council meeting if we can. The reason for that is, number one, to have the council receive the presentation on the county visioning statements. Those will go back to for basically the next step on March 9th, and they've asked us to try and have that done. I will have Tom Van Groningen, who has been the facilitator for this process, will be here to make that presentation if the council is in favor of that. What I'd like to do is schedule that, if we can, as a joint meeting between the City Council, the Planning Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Commission, so that all three groups can hear that, because it is an important issue for all of them. And actually that would be open to the public, anyone to come and hear. I think there's some very positive things that have come out of that process that we've been going through. I don't know, are there any comments, positive or negative, of scheduling that special meeting? The other half of that meeting, that will take about 1 hour. The other half of that meeting, for another hour, I would like to schedule to do some goal setting with the council. As you know, we are preparing to go into our next budget preparation cycle, and I would like to do some goal setting with the council. I've begun the process just initially with my department heads, and we would like to come back and make some presentations to the council and talk about goals for the upcoming year, see how we're doing on the goals that are in your budget for this year, and then proceed with that. So what I'm looking at is just a 2-hour meeting. We may not get through all of the goal setting session. We may need to come back on that one, but at least that would be a start to see where we're at.
Is that a Tuesday?
That is a Tuesday night. Yeah, that's the first Tuesday
Yeah, that would be fine with me, I think.
in March.
Okay. Are there any objections to
okay.
that?
Not for me.
Have the meeting here, or?
No,
going to be
we will.
We're gonna
We
need
will
a bigger
probably.
place if we're
yeah.
gonna have
It's
to.
gonna
If,
be
we
cozy.
get, if the other two groups agree to this also, and I'm assuming that they will, I would propose we probably meet at the Memorial Building,
Oh, excellent.
unless anyone has suggestions. The other option would be the theater, but I think probably the Memorial Building is where I would recommend.
Whoever
it.
has more comfortable seating.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, the lighting is probably
March
better.
6th that you're having something at the
March 4th
4th?
is proposed. I didn't announce that tonight because there's a possibility that may get changed. There's one conflict, but so we're waiting to see on that. But that's another meeting that will be at the theater on March 4th. Okay.
Okay.
Sound all right? Okay. Couple other quick things I was going to mention. The streetscape is underway. The advertisement for people to serve on the streetscape committee will be out in Thursday's paper. Unfortunately, after our last city council meeting, we tried to get it in the next Thursday's paper, but we were too late. We couldn't get it in that one. So it'll be in Thursday's paper, and hopefully we'll get some applications in. We do have 3 or 4 in already, and the only other thing would be for everyone in the community and for you, if you talk to people who may be interested. One of the concerns I have is with getting, as I mentioned, the makeup of that committee, some private citizens that are not business owners but have an interest in the city too that may be interested in serving in that. So if you know someone as far as neighbors, et cetera, that might be interested in looking at that, please tell them to stop down to City Hall, or you can stop in at City Hall, pick up an application and give to them.
Steve, did we restrict that to a certain number, or is it open?
Well, we had kind of set it at 7, I believe was the number,
Okay.
of total. I believe there were 3 business owners, or 2 business owners, 2 citizens, 1 council member, and 1 planning commission member. Maybe it was 3 business owners, 3, 2, and then 1 was.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 business owners, 2 council
That
members.
sounds like a good mix.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. If we got 8 applications, I may come back and recommend that we put them all on, it's just,
Yeah.
but we don't want to get it too big, so.
And that will be available at the next meeting?
We hope to, if we can get some applications in by that time. We have 3 or 4 right now. If we can get the applications in by then, yes, we'll definitely bring it back, so we can move on that. The comp and class study is beginning. We're getting underway on that one, so that one will be going. The final thing, and I don't know, Mayor, if you wanted to announce this, the council members already know this, but I thought it might be good to do tonight at our meeting, since it is being televised, is the commissioner appointments, which took place last Tuesday at our meeting.
Okay.
So if you'd like to.
Sure. At the last meeting, the city council appointed Manuel Alexander to the planning commission as a new member, whose term expires February 26th of 2000. And also the council reappointed Deborah Allen, whose term expires February 26, 2003, and Tom Applegate, the chairman of the Planning Commission, whose term expires February 26, 2003. Also, the council appointed Joyce Spiller as the new member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Her term will expire January 1st, 2003, and we reappointed Jeff Ennis, whose term expires January 1st, 2003, and Mike Perez, the Parks and Recreation Commission chairman, whose term expires January 1st, 2003. There you go.
I was just going to note for your information, Manuel Alexander, we felt, and I hope the council concurs with that, would fill the vacant seat left by Spring Wilson, who resigned from the commission. So
That's the reason there's 1 year.
that's why that term expires in 2000 rather than 2003. So okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Martina,
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Councilmember Altemuller.
Well, I think I've said enough tonight.
Okay. Councilmember Radford,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilmember Reed.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. I just had a couple of quick items. With regards to, I know it's the rainy season now, but one of the things that we've looked at in the past with the school district is resurfacing those tennis courts. Is that something that maybe we can look at that? Maybe we could contact the schools and to see what we're going to do before the season starts. Okay. And one other item, just to let the public know that we will be having a Newman Parks and Recreation Commission regular meeting this Thursday at 7 p.m. here at the council chamber. So if anybody from the public would like to attend the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, it's this Thursday. And other than that, I have no other items. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?